If the cross is the place where sin is dealt with, the resurrection is the place where death is dealt with. And if you do not feel the weight of that, you will miss why Christians talk about the resurrection with almost reckless joy. The resurrection is not presented as a nice ending to a sad story. It is presented as the turning point of reality itself. The Bible is claiming that something happened that rewired the future. Let us be honest. In most human stories, death wins. You can be wise, kind, powerful, or talented, and still the final chapter comes. That is why humans fear death, avoid it, joke about it, deny it, romanticize it, or distract themselves from it. Death is the one enemy nobody outsmarts. The New Testament steps into that universal fear and makes a claim so bold that it either changes everything or it changes nothing. Jesus rose from the dead. Now, even if you are listening to this as a learner and you are not sure what you believe yet, notice what the resurrection is doing inside the Bible's storyline. The cross says sin has been judged and forgiven. The resurrection says the forgiveness is real and effective because life has broken through the grave. The resurrection is God's yes to Jesus' work. In the Gospels, the resurrection is not described like a fairy tale. It is described with strangely grounded details. There is grief, there is confusion, there is fear, there is disbelief. The first witnesses are women, which is significant because in that ancient world, women's testimony was often dismissed. If you were inventing a story to sound convincing in that culture, you probably would not choose that detail. Yet the Gospels preserve it. It is as if they are saying, this is what happened, not what we think would have been easier to sell. Mary comes to the tomb early. The stone is moved, the body is gone. She weeps, not because she expects a miracle, but because she thinks someone stole the body. That is crucial. The first reaction is not triumph, it is sorrow and confusion. Then Jesus speaks her name, and she recognizes him. This moment matters because it shows how the resurrection is personal. It is not only cosmic victory, it is a voice speaking your name in grief. The disciples also struggle to believe. Some doubt, some hide, some are terrified. The resurrection does not instantly create fearless heroes. It meets them in their weakness. And then Jesus appears, not as a ghost, but as someone with a real body. He eats, he speaks, he shows scars. This is the Bible saying the resurrection is not simply spiritual survival. It is new, embodied life. That is why Christianity insists the physical world matters. Salvation is not escaping your body. It is redemption that reaches all of you. Now let us answer the main question. What does the resurrection mean? First, the resurrection means Jesus is who he claimed to be. Many people can teach nice moral ideas, but the resurrection is presented as God's confirmation that Jesus is the Messiah, the Son, the King. The cross looked like defeat. The resurrection declares it was victory. Second, the resurrection means sin's penalty has been dealt with. In the Bible's logic, death is connected to sin, not only as punishment, but as consequence of separation from the source of life. The resurrection means that separation is being reversed. Relationship is being restored. Life is returning. Third, the resurrection means hope is not wishful thinking. Hope becomes grounded. Not optimism, not vibes, not positive thinking. Hope becomes anchored in an event. If God can raise Jesus, then God can renew what looks dead in you, in your family, in your future, and even in the world. Fourth, the resurrection means a new creation has begun. This is one of the most important but most ignored Christian ideas. The New Testament does not only say Jesus went to heaven, it says new creation has started. Jesus is called the first fruits. That phrase means the first part of the harvest that promises the rest is coming. In other words, Jesus' resurrection is a preview of what God will do for the whole creation. This is why Christians believe resurrection is not only about going somewhere after death, it is about God renewing the world, a restored humanity. The resurrection is the seed of the future planted inside the present. Fifth, the The resurrection means your identity can change. Many people live defined by their worst chapter. The thing they regret, the thing they lost, the shame they carry. The failure that keeps replaying in their mind. The resurrection says your worst chapter is not a child chapter. The Bible's God specializes in new beginnings. Now let us make this practical. What does new life look like? The New Testament teaches that when someone trusts Christ, they are united with him. That sounds technical, but the meaning is simple. What happened to Jesus becomes the pattern of your life. You die to the old self and rise to a new one. Not physically yet, but spiritually now, and physically later in resurrection hope. Paul describes this as being a new creation. That does not mean you instantly become perfect. It means your deepest identity shifts. You are no longer defined by condemnation. You are defined by belonging. You are forgiven. You are adopted. You are being transformed. This changes how you fight sin. Before, you might try to change out of guilt and fear. You might try to behave to earn love. The resurrection changes the engine. You change because life has been given, not because you are trying to buy life. You obey from identity, not for identity. It also changes how you face suffering. The resurrection does not promise an easy life, but it promises that suffering is not the final word. It means even when life feels like Friday, Sunday is real. The resurrection is God saying, I can bring life out of tombs. Now consider the disciples. Before the resurrection, they are confused and frightened. After the resurrection, something changes. They become bold, not because they suddenly become confident personalities, but because their fear of death loses its grip. If death is defeated, the ultimate threat is gone. That is why people can face persecution without being destroyed inside. The resurrection also changes your relationship with death. Death remains painful. Christians still grieve. Jesus himself wept at a tomb, but grief is not despair. The resurrection gives grief a horizon. It says death is an enemy, but it is a defeated enemy. It says what is lost is not lost forever. Now there is another detail that matters. The resurrection is not presented as a private miracle that stays locked in one corner of history. It becomes a mission. Jesus sends his followers. Go, teach, make disciples, carry this message to the nations. The resurrection becomes a global announcement. God's kingdom is breaking in. Forgiveness is available. New life is possible. So what is the main teaching of episode 9? The resurrection is the proof that the cross worked. It is the launch of new creation. It is the foundation of Christian hope. It turns Christianity from moral advice into news. If Jesus stayed dead, Christianity would be a sad story about a brave teacher. The resurrection makes it a rescue story with a living king. And then Jesus ascends. This is often misunderstood. Ascension does not mean Jesus left and stopped caring. It means Jesus is enthroned. He is king. He reigns, and he promises something crucial. You will not be alone. The Holy Spirit is coming. That is episode 10.